The night sky erupted in a brilliant streak of blue-green light, cutting through the darkness like a wounded serpent. Zara clutched her daughter Mira tightly as their small spacecraft tumbled uncontrollably, alarms blaring and emergency systems failing one by one. Outside the cracked view screen, mountain peaks loomed closer with each passing second. Zara was no stranger to danger. As a refugee from the fallen Nelvarian colonies, she had spent months, years, even running from those who sought to destroy what remained of her people. Her emerald-tinted skin was marked with old scars, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in tight braids that spoke of survival and determination. "Hold on, my little star," she whispered to Mira, her 4-year-old daughter, whose large iridescent eyes reflected a mixture of fear and curious wonder. Even now, in the face of certain death, Mira seemed more interested than terrified. The spacecraft's emergency systems made one last desperate attempt to soften their descent. Magnetic stabilizers flickered, anti-gravity compensators whined, and the hull groaned under impossible stress. Zara wrapped her body around Mira, creating a protective cocoon as trees rushed up to meet them. Impact. Silence. Then the soft whimper of a child. Zara's body ached with 1,000 points of pain. Blood trickled from a cut above her eye, and her left arm hung at an unnatural angle. But Mira was alive. That was all that mattered. The child's small hand reached out, touching her mother's face. "Mama." Mira's voice was tiny, uncertain. "I'm here," Zara responded, fighting through waves of pain to assess their situation. The spacecraft was destroyed. Twisted metal and shattered components surrounded them like the skeletal remains of a mechanical beast. Their emergency supplies were scattered, some pulverized, others miraculously intact. A small medical kit, a data crystal containing their entire family history, a single picture of Mira's father, lost years ago during the first wave of attacks on their homeworld. Outside, a dense forest surrounded them. Tall trees with bark, unlike anything on their home planet, created a canopy that blocked most of the moonlight. Strange sounds echoed, night creatures communicating in a language as foreign to Zara as this entire world. They had chosen this planet, Earth, as their last desperate hope. Intelligence reports suggested these humans were different, compassionate, unpredictable, not like the militaristic societies that had hunted the Nelvarians to near extinction. Zara's communicator was damaged, but partially functional. She activated the emergency beacon, knowing it might attract exactly the kind of attention they were trying to avoid. But they had no choice. Mira needed medical attention, and Zara's injuries were severe. "We'll be okay," she told Mira, more to reassure herself than her daughter. "We always find a way." Mira nodded, her small hand still clutching the data crystal, their only remaining connection to their past. Her eyes, large and luminous, scanned their surroundings with a maturity far beyond her years. She had been born into a life of constant movement, of running, of survival. As dawn's first light began to filter through the forest, Zara knew their real journey was just beginning. Wounded, lost, and completely vulnerable in an alien landscape, they would need more than just luck to survive. They would need a miracle. The forest was alive with morning sounds, birds chirping, distant creek water rushing, and the soft rustle of leaves. Jack Reynolds adjusted his ranger backpack, moving carefully through the dense mountain terrain. His morning patrol was routine, something he'd done countless times over the past 12 years. Something felt different today. A faint metallic glint caught his eye. Years of wilderness experience had trained Jack to notice even the smallest disruptions in the landscape. He moved closer, his hand instinctively checking the first aid kit on his belt. What he saw stopped him in his tracks. A spacecraft, if you could call the twisted wreckage a spacecraft, lay broken among the trees. Branches were snapped like matchsticks, the ground scarred with a long, destructive trail. Jack had seen aircraft crashes before, but this was different. This wasn't any design he recognized. Movement, a soft sound, not quite a moan, not quite a whisper. Jack approached carefully, years of ranger training keeping him alert but calm. His first aid certification wasn't just a piece of paper. He'd saved lives before in these mountains. Through a crack in the broken metal, he saw her. An alien. There was no other word for it. Her skin had a faint green tinge, unlike any human complexion. Beside her, a small child, no more than 4 or 5, watched him with eyes that seemed to glow from within. The woman was badly injured. A deep gash ran along her left arm, and her breathing was shallow and irregular. The child remained absolutely still, watching Jack with an intensity that was both frightening and fascinating. Jack knew he had 2 choices: call it in and potentially subject these survivors to military or scientific scrutiny, or help them himself. He chose help. "I'm not going to hurt you." The small community clinic stood quietly at the edge of the mountain town. Dr. Elena Martinez had seen her share of unusual cases, but nothing could have prepared her for what Jack Reynolds brought through the back entrance that morning. Jack's hands were steady, but his eyes told a different story. Tension, uncertainty, something between fear and excitement. "I need your absolute discretion," Jack whispered, carefully helping Zara onto the examination table. Mira refused to leave her mother's side, her large, luminous eyes constantly scanning the room. Alina's medical training kicked in immediately. Years of working in remote humanitarian zones had taught her to adapt quickly. Different skin tone, unusual physiological markers. But beneath all the differences, she recognized something universal: a mother and child in need of help. "How extensive are her injuries?" Elena asked, her professional voice calm and controlled. Jack described the crash site, the broken spacecraft, the miraculous survival. Elena listened while carefully examining Zara. The alien's biological systems were unlike anything she had ever encountered. Her skin seemed to have a self-healing membrane. Bone structure suggested incredible resilience. Mira watched every movement, her small hand never leaving her mother's arm. "We can't report this," Elena said firmly. "Government teams would treat them like specimens, not survivors." Jack nodded. He had already reached the same conclusion. Elena prepared a makeshift privacy screen, blocking the clinic's rear examination room from potential outside view. Small-town clinics had advantages: fewer questions, more personal discretion. As she worked, Elena noticed something extraordinary. Zara's wounds were already showing signs of rapid healing. Technologies, biological adaptation. The possibilities were endless. "Can you understand me?" Elena asked Zara, speaking slowly and clearly. Zara's response came through a small device she wore, a translation mechanism. Her voice sounded mechanical but understandable. "We need safety. They will find us otherwise." The word "they" carried a weight of terror that needed no translation. Mira, meanwhile, had discovered a tablet on a nearby counter. Within moments, her small fingers were navigating its interface with a skill that shocked both Jack and Elena. Children adapt quickly, but this was something else entirely. "Who are you running from?" Jack asked. Zara's response was careful, measured. "A civilization that destroys to control. We are the last. My daughter is our future." Elena noticed how Zara's hand protectively moved towards Mira, a gesture of maternal love that transcended species. The clinic's back door had a reinforced lock. Jack knew every local law enforcement officer. He could ensure their protection, at least temporarily. "We need a plan," Elena said. "Temporary identification, medical cover story, something that explains your presence without raising suspicions." Zara looked confused. Jack explained the human concept of helping without expecting immediate return, a kindness that seemed alien to her. Outside, the mountain town continued its normal routine. A farmer drove his truck. Children walked to school. Nobody knew that inside this small clinic, 2 worlds were about to collide. Mira, still playing with the tablet, suddenly looked up. Her eyes, filled with an intelligence beyond her years, met Elena's. "We are safe now?" she asked. The simple question held layers of hope, fear, and desperate vulnerability. Elena looked at Jack. Jack looked at Zara. Something had changed in that moment. This was no longer just a rescue. This was the beginning of something much larger. 3 days had passed since Zara and Mira's arrival. The small clinic's back room had become their temporary sanctuary, a world hidden from prying eyes. Elena worked tirelessly on a translation device, bridging the communication gap between humans and these unexpected visitors. Zara's translation mechanism was damaged during the crash, making complex communication challenging. Mira, surprisingly, was picking up English faster than anyone expected. Her ability to learn seemed almost supernatural. "Our world died slowly," Zara explained, her mechanical translator working intermittently. "Not by war, by something worse." Jack and Elena exchanged glances. Mira sat nearby, drawing complex geometric patterns on a sketchpad, designs that looked more like advanced mathematical equations than childish doodles. The story emerged in fragments. The Nelvarian civilization had been advanced, perhaps more technologically sophisticated than humans could imagine. But advanced technology didn't protect them from a systematic destruction that went beyond traditional warfare. "Resource consumption," Zara said, her green-tinted fingers tracing a pattern on the table. "Not just planets. Entire civilizations. They consume, they replace, they destroy." Jack leaned forward. "Who are they?" A moment of silence. Mira looked up, her luminous eyes suddenly serious. "The Collectors," she said, her child's voice carrying an unexpected weight of horror. The Collectors, as the story unfolded, were not a traditional enemy. They were more like a systemic plague. Civilization harvesters who stripped resources, knowledge, and potential from entire species. They didn't just conquer. They consumed everything, leaving nothing behind. Elena's medical background helped her understand the deeper implications. Zara and Mira weren't just refugees. They were survivors of a species-wide extinction. "How many of your people remain?" Jack asked. Zara's response was heartbreaking in its simplicity. "We are it. Mira and me. The last." Mira continued drawing. Her sketches now covered multiple pages, complex diagrams that seemed to show planetary systems, energy networks, and something that looked like advanced computational models. "She's more than a child," Elena whispered to Jack. "She's carrying her entire civilization's knowledge." The translation device crackled. Zerat explained that before their civilization's collapse, they had implemented a radical preservation strategy. Critical knowledge, cultural memory, scientific discoveries, all were encoded into select individuals. Mira was one such vessel, a living library, a repository of an entire civilization's wisdom. Jack struggled to comprehend the magnitude. An entire species reduced to a mother and child, carrying the weight of generations in their memories and genetics. "The Collectors will find us," Zara said, her voice a mixture of fear and determination. "But they will not take my daughter. They will not take our legacy." Mira looked up from her drawings. For a moment, her child's face transformed. Something ancient and knowing flickered in her eyes. A wisdom that didn't belong to a 4-year-old. "We choose," she said suddenly in perfect English, "where we become roots." The statement hung in the air. Jack, Elena, and Zara understood its profound meaning. This wasn't just about survival. This was about rebirth, about finding a new ground to restart a civilization. Outside, the mountain town continued its quiet existence. Children played. Cars moved. Nobody knew that inside this small clinic, the fate of an entire species was being determined. Mira returned to her drawings. Complex, intricate, holding secrets of a civilization that refused to die. The first step of a new journey had begun. Small towns have secrets. Some are quiet. Some are extraordinary. The mountain community surrounding Jack Reynolds and Dr. Elena Martinez was about to discover their most unusual secret yet. Mira's integration began accidentally. Sarah Thompson, the local elementary school librarian, first noticed something different when Jack brought Mira to the town's small library. "Can you read this?" Sarah asked, pulling out a complex astronomy book. Mira didn't just read. She explained quantum mechanics principles that would challenge most university professors. Her explanation came with drawings, intricate, mathematically perfect diagrams that seemed to dance between scientific precision and artistic beauty. News travels fast in small communities, not through gossip, but through genuine curiosity and care. Maria Rodriguez, who ran the local bakery, started bringing special soft bread for Mira. The child's unique dietary needs became a community project. Some brought vegetables. Others brought soft, easily digestible foods. Zara watched, confused and amazed. Her translator, now partially repaired by Elena, captured her thoughts. "Your people, they help without expecting return." Jack smiled. "That's what communities do." The local mechanic, Tom Harrison, discovered Mira could diagnose complex mechanical issues just by looking at engine schematics. What took him hours, she explained in minutes, complete with precise recommendations for repair. "It's like she sees inside machines," Tom told Jack. Showing him complex engine blueprints, Mira had redrawn with incredible accuracy. Elena began documenting Mira's capabilities carefully. The child wasn't just intelligent. She was a walking repository of scientific and cultural knowledge. Her brain seemed to process information at speeds human technology couldn't measure. But it wasn't just intelligence. Mira showed profound emotional depth. When old Robert Jenkins, the town's eldest resident, shared stories about losing his wife, Mira listened with a compassion that seemed impossible for a 4-year-old. "She understands loss," Zara explained. "Our people record emotional experiences as carefully as scientific knowledge." The community began protecting them quietly. No official reports. No government agencies. Just a collective decision to shelter these unexpected visitors. School became an interesting challenge. Mira's knowledge far exceeded standard curriculum. Elena and the local school principal developed a unique learning approach, letting Mira explore, learn, and contribute rather than following traditional educational structures. Zara slowly healed. Her alien physiology combined with human medical care created something unique. She started teaching local farmers about advanced agricultural techniques, methods that could increase crop yield and reduce environmental impact. "Your planet has so much potential," she told Jack one evening. "If only you understand how to listen to it." Mira continued drawing. Her artwork wasn't just art. They were complex blueprints, technological designs that seemed to bridge multiple scientific disciplines: renewable energy systems, medical technology, environmental restoration techniques. The town was changing, subtly, quietly. Tom's auto repair shop became more efficient. Maria's bakery developed new preservation techniques. The local farm's crop yield increased dramatically. Nobody discussed the alien visitors directly, but everyone knew something extraordinary was happening. One evening, as sunset painted the mountain sky in deep oranges and purples, Mira looked at Jack and Elena. "We are becoming roots," she said, repeating the phrase from earlier. Zara squeezed her daughter's hand. The gesture was both alien and profoundly maternal, a universal language of love that needed no translation. The mountain town had found its most extraordinary secret, and that secret was hope. The first warning came on a quiet Tuesday morning. Mira stopped drawing. Her hand froze mid-sketch, luminous eyes suddenly distant. Zara felt it first, a vibration that wasn't physical, something deeper, something technological. "They're coming," she whispered. Jack was drinking coffee with Elena when the first satellite signals went crazy. Communications glitched. Weather monitoring systems flickered. Something was approaching Earth's atmosphere, and it wasn't following any known technological pattern. The collectors had found them. Mira's previous drawings suddenly made sense. What everyone thought were complex scientific diagrams were actually defensive schematics, technological blueprints designed to protect against an invasive civilization. "Not just protect," Mira corrected when Jack asked. Redirect. The town's technology began responding in ways no one expected. Tom's repair shop computers started generating complex interference patterns. Maria's bakery refrigeration system created electromagnetic fields that seemed to bend around invisible points. Alina realized Mira wasn't just sharing knowledge. She was implementing a planet-wide defensive strategy. Our technology doesn't fight, Zora explained. It adapts. It redirects, like water around a stone. Government monitoring stations began picking up unusual activity, strange energy signatures, technological anomalies that defied current scientific understanding. Mira stood at the clinic's window, her small hand touching the glass. Around her, invisible technological waves began to pulse, not as weapons, but as complex communication systems. They want to consume, Mira said, but consumption requires entry, and entry requires invitation. Jack and Elena watched, understanding little but sensing everything. The first collector probe entered Earth's atmosphere. It looked like nothing human technology could comprehend. Part machine, part organic system, designed to scan, assess, and ultimately consume planetary resources. But something was different this time. Instead of following its programmed path, the probe began to deviate. Subtle shifts, microscopic redirections. Mira's technological language was speaking to the probe in a way no human system could understand. "We offer alternative," Mira said. Her voice carried the weight of an entire lost civilization. The probe stopped, hovering, analyzing. Town technology continued its subtle dance. Communication systems, energy grids, even simple electrical systems began responding to an unheard frequency. Zara watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and terror. "She is offering them a choice," she told Jack and Alina. "Not destruction, not resistance, but redirection." More probes entered Earth's atmosphere. Each one encountered the same phenomenon: redirection. Conversation, a technological dialogue that humans couldn't comprehend but could feel. The local power grid pulsed. Streetlights flickered in complex patterns. Cell phone towers created interference that wasn't random. It was a message. "Your method of survival destroys." Mira's technology seemed to communicate. "Here is an alternative." Jack looked at Alina. "What's happening?" Alina, a woman of science, could only shake her head. "Something incredible." Mira continued standing by the window, her small hand still touching the glass. Around her, the world was having a conversation humans couldn't hear but would forever be changed by. The collectors had found them, but they would not consume. Not this time. Not with Mira watching. Global communication networks went silent for exactly 12 minutes and 37 seconds. When they returned, everything had changed. Scientific research centers around the world began reporting unprecedented discoveries, not from their own research, but from what seemed like downloaded knowledge. Complex environmental restoration techniques, medical breakthroughs, energy solutions that solved generations of human challenges. The collectors didn't invade. They were invited to understand. Mira stood in the mountain clinic, her small hand still touching complex holographic displays that seemed to breathe with living information. Zara watched, her green-tinted skin reflecting the soft technological light. "We offered them evolution," Mira explained to Jack and Alina. "Not destruction. Understanding." Global leaders were baffled. Military strategists confused. Scientific communities overwhelmed. The technological exchange Mira had initiated wasn't an invasion. It was a transfer of knowledge so profound it would rewrite human understanding. Dr. Elena Martinez documented everything. Each technological breakthrough, each subtle change in global systems. The medical implications alone were staggering. Tom the mechanic's auto repair shop now used technologies that seemed to predict mechanical failures before they happened. Maria's bakery developed preservation techniques that could keep food fresh for months without refrigeration. The small mountain town became the epicenter of a silent global transformation. "The collectors are not enemies," Zora explained. They are survivors seeking resources. We showed them another way to survive. Mira's drawings, once thought to be child's complex doodles, were now recognized as blueprint technologies that could solve multiple global challenges: climate restoration, energy production, medical breakthroughs. Jack realized they were witnessing something beyond first contact. This was a planetary reset. United Nations emergency sessions were called. Scientific conferences held emergency meetings, but the transformation was already happening, quietly, efficiently. "We do not conquer," Mira said. "We contribute." The first global changes were subtle. Energy grids became more efficient. Agricultural systems showed unprecedented productivity. Medical research centers reported breakthrough treatments for diseases that had been considered incurable. Zara explained the Neltharian approach. Survival is not about taking. It's about understanding, about offering alternatives. Mira continued her work, sometimes in the clinic, sometimes in Tom's repair shop, sometimes just sitting quietly, her luminous eyes tracking complex technological patterns invisible to human perception. The mountain town became a subtle experiment, a proof of concept that technological exchange could happen without conflict, without destruction. Global satellite networks began sharing information differently, not as competitive data, but as collaborative knowledge. Military communication systems started prioritizing humanitarian information over strategic positioning. "We are becoming roots," Mira repeated. The phrase that had confused everyone now made perfect sense. Jack watched Elena document everything. Scientific breakthrough after scientific breakthrough. Technological innovation after innovation. The collectors didn't leave. They integrated, transformed, became part of a larger understanding. One evening, as mountain sunset painted the sky in deep oranges, Mira looked at Jack, Elena, and Zara. "Survival is a collaborative project," she said. Her 4-year-old voice carried the wisdom of an entire lost civilization. The mountain town had become something more than a sanctuary. It had become a blueprint for planetary transformation. And it all started with a crashed spacecraft, a wounded mother, and a child who understood that true power wasn't about conquest. It was about connection. 10 years had passed since Zara and Mira's unexpected arrival in the small mountain town. The world looked different now. Not dramatically changed, but subtly transformed, like a painting where every color had been slightly adjusted, creating an entirely new perspective. Mira, now 14, stood at the edge of the Mountain Research Center, a facility that had grown from the small clinic where her journey began. Behind her, holographic displays showed global environmental restoration projects, medical breakthrough timelines, and technological innovation maps. Jack Reynolds, now with more gray in his hair, watched her with a mixture of pride and wonder. The little alien child who had crashed into their lives had become humanity's most unexpected ambassador. "We're preparing the first interstellar collaborative mission," Mira explained to the international team gathered around her. Scientists from 52 countries listened with complete attention. No longer was she the mysterious child. She was a global scientific leader. Zara sat nearby, her green-tinted skin now a familiar sight. She had become a key advisor in planetary ecological restoration. The Neltharian knowledge, once a desperate secret, was now humanity's most valuable resource. Elena Martinez, now heading the Global Medical Innovation Center, reviewed the latest reports. Diseases that had seemed impossible to cure were now manageable. Entire ecosystems were being restored using technologies derived from Mira's initial drawings. The collectors, once viewed as a threat, were now collaborative partners. Their technological approach had been completely transformed by the interaction with Mira and Zara. What was once a civilization of consumption had become a network of shared knowledge. "Survival is not about taking," Mira often said, repeating the wisdom her mother had taught her. "It's about understanding." The mountain town that had first sheltered them was now a global research hub. Tom's auto repair shop had evolved into an advanced technological innovation center. Maria's bakery now developed sustainable food production technologies that were feeding millions. Mira's original drawings, those complex sketches that once confused everyone, were now displayed in scientific museums worldwide. Each line, each geometric pattern now recognized as a breakthrough technological concept. Jack watched her deliver her presentation, the international team hanging on her every word. A 14-year-old who carried the knowledge of an entire lost civilization, speaking about humanity's potential for collaborative survival. "We are not fixing the planet," Mira explained. "We are listening to it, understanding its needs, becoming part of its ecosystem, not its conqueror." The transformation wasn't just technological. It was philosophical. A complete reimagining of how civilizations could interact, how species could communicate, how knowledge could be shared. Zora looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and amazement. The desperate refugee who had crashed in this mountain town had found more than survival. They had found purpose. As the presentation concluded, Mira looked out the window. The mountain landscape that had first sheltered them now symbolized something greater, a place where an impossible story had begun. A story of survival, of understanding, of hope. "We are roots," Mira said softly, repeating the phrase that had guided their entire journey. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, not as a protector, but as a collaborator, as family. Outside, the mountain town continued its quiet existence. But everyone knew something extraordinary had happened here. A small moment of unexpected connection had changed everything. A mother, a daughter, a crashed spacecraft, and a community that chose understanding over fear. The story of Zara and Mira was no longer just their story. It had become everyone's story.